Gaza is in ruins. More than 40,000 lives lost. The economy too has been leveled. Nearly everyone still alive now lives in poverty, mourning the dead while struggling to survive. A year on from the conflict, MoneyWorks looks at the devastating cost of Israel's war on Gaza. Look, I'm going to give it to you straight. Gaza has been poor for decades. Even before the latest war, 2/3 of the people who lived there were surviving below the poverty line. But since October 2023, all the numbers have gone through the floor. The World Bank says 200,000 jobs in Gaza were lost in the last months of 2023 alone. The economy shrank by 28% to its lowest recorded level. A further contraction of almost up to 10% is being forecast for this year. Basically, what hasn't been destroyed is occupied by Israeli troops. Factories have been bombed, so workers can't work. Hospitals have been flattened, so nurses can't nurse. Refugees occupy the schools still standing, so teachers can't teach. Aid has become the only economic driver, and even that is a desperate struggle.
More than 55 evacuation orders remain in effect, covering up to 86% of the Gaza Strip. These directives, coupled with active hostilities, attacks on aid convoy, and the destruction of key roads, the presence of unexploded ordnance, and the lack of public order and safety are impeding aid operations in Gaza.
And a quick reminder, as of July 2024, 2.1 million Palestinians were locked inside this tiny area with almost no way out. The vast majority of them are now internally displaced. Even before the tanks rolled in, life in Gaza was tough. The economy has been in freefall for decades, and the United Nations has a devastating warning. Even if the Israeli forces were to end their military operation today, and even if reconstruction were to start straight away, and then if GDP was to pick up at an average of 10% a year, Gaza's economy would only return to its 2022 level by 2028, to its 2006 levels in 2035. And while it's the Palestinians in Gaza that have taken the biggest economic hit, they're suffering in the occupied West Bank too, as the Israeli army and illegal Israeli settlers restrict movement and throttle employment opportunities. Now let's turn back to the World Bank. It said back in May 2024 that 144,000 jobs in the West Bank had been lost, and that of 148,000 cross-border commuters from the West Bank to the Israeli labor market could no longer work. The financial uncertainty is only worsened by Israel's control over when it decides to hand over taxes owed to the Palestinian Authority, and over whether it will extend cooperation between its banking system and the Palestinian banks in the West Bank. At various times, there's been doubt over both. And then there's tourism. The US and the British governments are among those suggesting travelers think twice before heading to the West Bank, which means the occupied West Bank is losing $2.5 million each and every day. Last Christmas, celebrations in Bethlehem were cancelled. Everyone knows that wars cost a lot of money, and Israelis have begun to notice. The rights group Euromed says 70,000 tons of explosives were dropped on the Gaza Strip in the first 200 days of the war. That's until June alone. That in itself is more than what was dropped on Dresden, Hamburg, and London combined during the Second World War. Israel's finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, says the war has cost his country up to $68 billion so far. He calls it the longest and most expensive war in Israel's history. A $9.5 billion cut in government spending is planned to help pay for it. 3 credit rating agencies lowered Israel's credit rating in 2024, which could make it harder for the government to borrow money. And according to Israel's Central Bureau of Statistics, just over 500,000 tourists arrived in Israel between January and June 2024. That's a 76% drop on the same period the year before. It's a staggering amount of money, of course. But these billions of dollars will mean very little to the people in Gaza who are mourning their dead. In a war that has killed so many civilians, desperate for stability and desperate for peace.